So even Joe Rogan is weighing in on the complete lack of coverage of the Hunter Biden laptop from all mainstream media: CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, NBC. Crickets. Nothing. You got nothing. I just did another quick Google search looking for any scrap of information from any of the major media outlets. We got nothing. We got nothing. What does this mean? Is Hunter Biden, is he going to get indicted? That's something a lot of people are kind of pointing to and going, well, that could be a very real probability. Could be a very real possibility. Maybe that happens. Or has the Biden ratings, have they fallen so far that this is transition time to moving on to something else? I'm leaning more towards the first one. I think Hunter Biden gets indicted. I think there's enough shady stuff going on there. And then will that in turn, will some of that stuff flow upstream? If you haven't looked to kind of see what some of the content was on said missing laptop that resurrected itself, it found itself at a repair shop in Delaware. If you haven't seen some of the content on there, it's juicy. And by that, I mean, it's like, it's not suitable for your children to see. You got some crazy stuff going on there. Drugs, prostitutes, the usual, payments from dad, the share bank accounts, some, selling of, who knows what all the stuff on that laptop means or what the implications are. But what is super interesting is that this story has just been, and the reason I keep coming back to it is because it was one of those things where I did a podcast and I didn't get paid. You know why? I don't know why, other than the fact that, advertising wasn't deemed suitable for my work. And it was like, okay, why? Well, kind of seems like powers that be, they don't really want this story to go anywhere at all. And that's exactly what's happening. So I first covered this topic about the New York Times. They basically stated in paragraph 26 of a most recent report having to do with the Biden investigation, ongoing investigation. Hunter Biden paid $1 million in back taxes. All right, he's getting that going. But there's still an ongoing investigation. And in literally page 26 of an article that came out last Thursday, they basically, way buried in this article, they said, yeah, it appears that information came from a laptop that was at a repair shop. And yeah, it was true. So it wasn't Russian misinformation. It was information off a laptop that, Hunter Biden couldn't seem to be bothered to go back and actually pay for and get out of the repair shop. How do you do that? I mean, your dad's going to be the president. He's running for president. It's 2020. Can't figure out a laptop. Got some crazy stuff on the laptop. I mean, prostitution and just some not reasonable things going on. Could that possibly impact dad's running for president of United States? The answer is, it appears, no, it's going to have zero impact right now where we sit today. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about mainstream media totally nixing the story, and then Joe Rogan popping off with, yeah, they should be held accountable. All those media outlets that said, no, this is Russian misinformation campaign. It's not a real laptop. This is Russian misinformation campaign. So all this stuff going on. And the vast majority of people, I think, just don't even know this is a story. They have no idea. I look for it because I know what the New York Times article means, and you probably do too, because I've been babbling about this for enough. But it means that the media has 100% covered this up. That's just what we got going on here. All right. Before we jump on in, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Sean Reynolds. I own a couple of real estate companies here in Seattle, Washington, and I read news for reasonable people. Let's do this. Okay, so Hunter Biden scandal, CNN and MSNBC. Are you shocked? No, none of us are shocked. It's like, well, what actually did you really expect? That they would all go, oh my gosh, we got that one wrong. Just a few days before the election, and we got a story about crazy information on the president's son's laptop. That story got buried? Not shocking at all, right? But to be told by 50 or whatever it was, former intelligence officers, that this sounded like Russian misinformation, yeah, we're getting deep. It's getting deep. It's like, what are we doing here, folks? Pretty wild stuff. And to go out and look at how the individual media outlets have covered it is really interesting. Like, mom is the word on this storyline for the vast majority of these outlets. Like, just not mom is the word, just no mention whatsoever. And this was a huge, huge deal. It was a huge, huge topic until it basically just got crushed about October 21st, 2020. That's about when this topic just, nothing to see here. Russian misinformation, we're sure. I mean, we've got no proof, but it just sounds like Russian information. It seems like something the Russians would do. So therefore, without any proof at all, we're collectively 50 of us are going to say, Russian misinformation. So it was once routine that damning reports about the president published by the New York Times would lead nearly every news program. That's what would have happened. That is no longer the case, at least under President Biden. The Times ran a lengthy story Wednesday diving into the Justice Department's ongoing investigation of Biden's son Hunter, and how a grand jury is still collecting witness testimony and records regarding his business dealings overseas. The Times also verified the explosive emails first published by the New York Post in October 2020, just weeks before the presidential election, that implicated then-candidate Biden, despite public denials he had anything to do with his son's finances. Okay, so he basically just said, I don't know what he's doing over there. 10% for the big guy? Is that out there at all? That was out there. Who's the big guy? Oh, don't really know. We're not really sure. What in the world was Hunter Biden doing over there? What was he doing anywhere doing business? That's a really good question. Does he have any background in business whatsoever? I don't believe so. And yet he's over there making thousands of dollars, 50 grand per month, I think was one contract. It's like, okay, what are they getting for your services? Because based on the information on the said laptop, you got other stuff going on besides being a really good business guy. Since Wednesday evening, the Times report has received zero attention on the 5 major networks. Zero. 045. Nothing. Zilch. ABC, CBS, and NBC made no mention of Hunter Biden on their morning and evening newscasts. Neither CNN nor MSNBC dedicated time to the ongoing scandal, despite being 24-hour news networks, because it's not a storyline that really helps the cause, is it? That's the brutal truth. Well, that one doesn't fit our narrative. Don't talk about that. I thought we sidestepped that back in October 2020, right before the election, which we did. But hey, now bringing that up again, that's almost un-American. Oh, that thing with that laptop was true. It wasn't Russian misinfo. Oh, well, okay. Yeah, we got a war to worry about now. And it's not a war that we're directly involved in, but let's talk about that war. COVID's basically over, done, kibosh, right? Even though one of my guys got it on the weekend. Oh, not good. But, the Rona's still out there. So additionally, CNN media correspondent Brian Stelter also ignored the Times report in his media-centric Reliable Sources newsletter, but managed to squeeze in a mention about Meghan Markle's newest podcast. They don't want to talk about it. And yeah, I get that. I mean, I probably wouldn't either if I was in their position. You know why? Because it makes them look really bad. Oh, yeah. When we said that was Russian misinformation, I mean, we thought, it could have been. It kind of sounded like something, those shiesty Russians would say. It sounded kind of like that could have been. That's literally the best that they had. And effectively, they totally crushed this storyline. In November, the 5 networks similarly avoided another Times report that alleged an investment firm that counts Hunter Biden among its founders helped a Chinese company purchase one of the world's most lucrative cobalt mines from an American company while his father was vice president, renewing concerns about a potential conflict of interest and whether the now current president had any knowledge about his son's business dealings, which he had previously denied. What's going on, folks? What's happening? That is the question of the hour, because the crickets from the Big Five, that's when you're kind of like, okay, all right. But we expected that. All right. Is something else going to happen? Is something else going to happen? That's what we kind of keep looking for. And I think it will. I think it'll come out and you'll be like, oh, okay. Let's check out what the dailymail.com has to say. They're willing to ignore, and this is about regarding Joe Biden, what he has to say. They're willing to ignore facts to push their narrative. Joe Rogan always kind of cuts it just right basic. All right, here in my terms, this is what we got going on. Joe Rogan slams the liberal media for suppressing Hunter Biden laptop story before the election. And I've said this many times. I don't believe the elections were rigged. I don't believe the elections were thrown. I have no reason to believe that the results were anything but what they were. But where I diverge from there is you've got things like this storyline going on that if everybody had a chance to hear this storyline, or if it was out in the news without the Russian disinfo thing, things might have ended up differently. It would have impacted things for sure. But this is the length and this is the extent to which, information is held from us now. I mean, it's this basic, this crazy that Joe Rogan, the number one podcast in the world, is basically stating they're willing to ignore facts to push their narrative. And that's exactly what happened. Joe Rogan criticized the media for creating a narrative over Hunter Biden's lost laptops after it was revealed incriminating content on the computers were real. During Saturday's Joe Rogan Experience, Rogan called out journalists for at first suppressing the story broken by the New York Post before the 2020 election. They totally suppressed it then. After the Post broke the story, mainstream outlets such as the left-leaning New York Times and Washington Post, they shied away from reporting on it because it didn't help their cause. Their cause was get Biden elected. And now that Biden is president, they don't even need to make a mention of it at all. Just don't. Twitter even locked the Post's account for a fortnight after it shared a story later revealed to be true. The outlets deemed the reports regarding incriminating text messages, photos, and financial documents found on the device to be unproven misinformation. Those Russians, they must have planted this. This is very, very fishy. Must be those Russians. Files found on Biden's personal computer included emails of shady business dealings with foreign officials and naked, drug-rife photos with prostitutes. I don't think they're worried about those because they can pawn those off on, well, he was on drugs. He was doing a lot of crack. They've got a picture of him asleep with a crack pipe in his mouth. That's not healthy. That's not reasonable. I think it's the business dealings. I think that's what we've got going on. Those are obviously the files that are like, ooh, yeah, that's not, oh, that might implicate the big guy. Gotta suppress that. But the fact that 17 months after this story was basically broken back, October of 2020, that in March of 2022, the New York Times is coming clean. There's something going on. We're going to find out something down the road. Whether it's sooner or later, I think it's sooner. Hunter Biden's lost laptops after it was revealed incriminating text messages, photos, and financial documents found on the devices. They were deemed authentic. During a Saturday airing of the Joe Rogan Experience, Rogan called out journalists for suppressing the story. He spoke of the days after the New York Times finally admitted Hunter Biden's laptop was real, having haughtily dismissed the story as a misinformation in the run-up to last year's White House contest. This is the problem that I had with the New York Post article and the Hunter Biden laptop being suppressed, Rogan told guest, former CIA officer and security expert Mike Baker on air during the podcast. It's not that I'm a Trump supporter, Rogan first disclaimed. I didn't vote for him. I've never voted for any Republican in my life. Rogan's typically libertarian or something along those lines. He's reasonable. He continued, you're looking at something that's real information and you're hiding it from people because you don't like the result you think is going to come out of that information. That's not how we're supposed to be doing things. Clearly, that's not. We're supposed to let information, supposed to let the truth rise to the surface, right? I mean, good luck with that one. This is a real life, true example of how the media is wildly one-sided. I don't think you can, after this whole dealy bob here, after this whole thing kind of comes and goes and comes with zero media attention to it, especially in the last week or so, with zero media attention. The Wall Street Journal did do a story, but your main media, they're like, the Hunter Biden laptop, it's still alive. What was interesting, I think it was the New York Post. They went back and asked for comments from every single one of those former security officials. And some of the responses those guys had were, I didn't know this was even I hadn't heard of it. Yeah, of course you hadn't heard of it. You've heard of it. They've all heard of it. Hey, it's revealed in the New York Times that, that story about the Biden laptop, that's true. The New York Times is saying the source is real and it was real back then. Mum's the word. So if you just ignore it and don't say anything about it, well, maybe it'll go away. Maybe that is what happens. But I think we've got something coming out. I just do. I don't have anything to base that on, much like the intelligence officials stating that the laptop was Russian disinformation. Much like that, I have zero to go on. And I'm just this is what I'm kind of thinking, is that I think Hunter Biden gets indicted, or there's something going on there where they're going to dig in just a scooch more, kind of find out what's going on. Because why else would the New York Times all of a sudden correct their position and, that story, it was a small one. Nobody really paid much attention to it because, media didn't really push it out. And that's a lot of what people don't understand, is that you can outright take a topic and say, nope, we're not covering that at all. Or you can take a topic and, that video, that's not really suitable for advertisers. They don't really want to advertise on something with a topic like that. And so if it's not going to make anybody any money, how much viewership do you think it gets? You get what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying happens and happened and is happening? Yeah, that's what you got going on. Stuff's being just information that people don't want you to see. You're not seeing it. So, yeah. So what will happen? Will Hunter Biden get indicted? Will some of his crazy things that he had going on back in the day? It's all good now, though. I mean, he's off the drugs. All right. I don't have any issue with somebody getting their life back together. But whatever they did during that time period in their life, that may come back to really haunt them. And some of the stuff that I think we've had go down here and the media's basically suppression of it, I think that will come back and it will haunt the current administration. How much? I don't know. But that to me makes me think, maybe I'm just being too reasonable. Maybe I'm giving the system too much credit. But why else would the New York Times, which typically leans a little bit left, why all of a sudden do they change their story and give it credit and say, okay, make no mention of Russian misinformation, but basically come out and say, this was a legit source. Yeah, that was legit info, and kind of leave it at that. And then the rest of the media just goes, nothing to see here. Got nothing. No. How about that war way over there? How about inflation? How about that supply chain? Oh, we're not really talking about supply chain much anymore. How about COVID? No, we're not really talking about that much either, are we? No, we've moved on. We've moved on. And this storyline, yeah, it's way been moved on to the point where round 2 here last week, not a thing at all. But I'm going to keep covering it because I think this is a great example of you're seeing what they want you to see or not seeing what they don't want you to see. So you got to come to reasonable places to get your news. We're still talking about it. We're still talking about it. New York Times is talking about it. What's the dealio? You'd have to stay tuned to find out because obviously you're not going to get this kind of content from many other sources. Weird, right? That's it for me. We'll catch up soon. Talk then. Bye for now.